Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Zero to One. We're really excited again to be joined by Steve Dawson, who's the founder and CEO of Asian Market Entry, one of the leading suppliers out here in the space, helping businesses expand into Asia. You know, even if you're an established business, quite often you don't necessarily know where to get going in such a complicated but very exciting market. And also for maybe smaller companies that are also interested in putting their roots in Singapore. And we know that a lot of the members that join these calls or watch the videos afterwards have an interest in that. So, you know, we're excited to bring this to you as well. And if you aren't already aware, there's also some quite cool solutions on the platform in the marketplace through Doerscircle as well that you can check out perhaps afterwards as well. But yeah, we're really excited to do this session. So Steve, thanks for joining us. And what we'll do, just last piece of kind of housekeeping, I guess, is Steve is going to present some insights with you all via the slides. And of course, if you have questions throughout, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom. But also we can have a little bit more Q&A session at the end as well. Or feel free to use the chat box. So hopefully that's all clear. And yeah, let's kick off. So thanks very much, Steve.
Thanks, Jamie. Hello, everybody. Nice to have you all on the call today. And thanks, guys at Doerscircle for giving me the opportunity to talk today. So there's lots we could talk about. As the name suggests, Asian market entry. We help companies enter the Asian market, but that covers a lot of things. But today we're going to talk about market readiness and partnerships, given I think we've got 15 to 20 minutes before we go into Q&A. So let's get straight into this. First thing, you may, not sure how many people are from Singapore, I assume most, but if you walk down Boat Quay and you see number 56, this is where we are. That's our office circled. That's where I'm presenting from today. We're there on the second and third floor, and that's just a bit of history. I think this building that I'm in today has been in the business in the landlord's hands for the last 100 years, believe it or not. So a lot of history there, but that's where we are if you're ever walking by and see our logo on the side on the riverfront there. In terms of just some of what we do, who we work with. Of course, Doerscircle, but amongst other government agencies that we work with is the EDB, ACE, Enterprise Singapore, the IMDA, plus various others. And essentially our job as a market entry, I guess, group of consultants who are very much firmly focused on revenue creation on behalf of companies that want to come into this market. We've tapped into quite a lot of networks, be that private equity or VCs or hyperscalers or just generally the buying network that's out here. And we've been doing this for about 10 years now. I founded the company in late 2015. So yeah, I think we're about 9.5 years old now. In terms of just quickly what we do, so everyone understands as a core business, we run workshops. That's listed in Doerscircle as a product offering. We also validate the market to identify product market fit for companies coming into the region and don't know what they don't know. We do quite a lot of work around pipeline creation, either via a consortium of partners that we work with or via a quite sophisticated AI driven platform that we've built. We build partner networks, which is what I'm going to talk about a lot today. Not just building the partner networks, but also building the programs on which you can partner better. And like I said, that's going to be a core topic of how to scale. And then lastly, we also allow and enable companies to have fractional sales that once you've got pipeline and partners, we often place people to be able to do that for them. So even though the company is called Asian Market Entry, and yes, by and large, we're helping companies enter the Asian market, as you'd expect, what we're going to talk about today is actually international expansion in general. So it doesn't matter whether you're an international company or a Singapore-based company, the principles remain. So let's get straight into this and talk about market readiness. I probably speak to about 10 or 20 companies a week various descriptions coming into this market or Singapore-based that really want to expand, because, you know, who doesn't want to come to Singapore? Who doesn't want to tap into this market? But the truth of it is that many are not ready. So the first bit of a reality check that I just want to share with everyone needs to be, you know, conscious of. And I appreciate there's probably founders here, there's perhaps people in management positions or whatnot. In order to truly expand, first thing is you need true management and exec and board support. Without that support, it's going to become very difficult. Other pieces are that in order to trade internationally, you need to have your contracts internationally ready, as well as partner agreements in order to partner, because in some countries you simply have to have partners in order to trade. Next is that, well, in order to market internationally, be that here or elsewhere, whatever your story is now on the website does need to be nuanced based on the different target market that you're going after. That does not mean just translations, by the way. It also means vernacular, acronyms, and generally speaking to the regulatory language of any given industry that you may or may not be in. The other big piece is that really, when we talk about international expansion, it's a really nice idea. And of course, we all want to do that. But are you really ready? Do you have the size of a team? Do you really have enough customers at home to support that? And do you really have the confidence to see that you've got enough evidence in your home market to be able to go and do that with confidence? Because if you don't, it's really a case of, well, making sure that you've got your home market in order and you can truly go into these other markets knowing full well that you can support that properly. And then lastly, and this is a big point for the startups, the smaller companies that are looking to expand, is that going to deviate or take focus away from some of your other core efforts? Because it does, as I'll come to shortly. The next piece is, well, how have you defined your selling approach? And it doesn't matter whether you're a software company, another product company, a services company. It doesn't, you know, it's any kind of service or product, really. You've got a few options, really. But if you really break it down, you could either sell it directly, either via local headcount or fractional, or however you want to do it. You can hire people locally, you can relocate them, or you can just find contractors to do that, or you can sell online, right? Partnering, which is what we're going to focus on a lot today, is essential because partnering gives you that scale. But within partnering, there's lots of nuance within that. There's referral, there's reseller, there's distribution. Distribution means selling via resellers. There's OEM, where essentially you bundle yourself into a principal. And then there's also other affiliate partners, which we'll just put into the realm of, let's call it marketing or services partners. So that nuance is really important because each of those different categories of partners have different margins and different commercial models that get incentivized differently according to the effort that they put in. But partnering is really essential unless you've got very deep pockets to scale, because ultimately they can bring you the people and the relationships and the cultural nuance that you need in the absence of deep pockets and the need to hire lots of people. Or of course you can use third-party agencies. We're one of them. There are several, but anyway, these are your options, and we'll go quite deep into the partnering piece shortly. When we talk about, well, big piece of market readiness is, and appreciate there might be single founders here, there might be people on this call from companies which are a bit bigger than that. It's really important, instead of going renegade and going, well, we think there's a good market because it's bright and shiny and there's a lot of opportunity. That's all well and good if you think that, but it's also very important that your whole company goes along for that ride. One, from the C-suite, they're going to have to support that, obviously. From the sales point of view, it needs to be someone's job to own and really be accountable for that international pipeline. It can't be just a day job, because otherwise it loses focus and you just don't get the results you'll need. If you are going to go down a partner path, someone needs to at least part-time take care of that. Sales ops really is contract creation, quotations, statements of work, contracts. That also needs to be someone's job. especially if it's done internationally, because you as founders are quite likely to not have the scale to be able to do that properly, because you have to be careful what you wish for when you go into new markets. You can have a huge pipeline, and then someone's ultimately got to follow up on that. And if you don't do it quickly, you're going to ultimately fail because you're not quick enough to handle it. If you do have a product that you need to demo, you're going to need people to handle that on pre-sales. That could be out of hours. And it needs to be someone's job to be at least expect that people are going to have to share and be a subject matter expert in whatever you do. From a marketing point of view, be it partner marketing or end user marketing, again, it's going to need to take a concerted effort to drive pipeline, create content relevant for your website, etc. Professional services, assuming that you need people to go and implement whatever you're doing or talk competently about what you're doing, you're going to need that too. Technical support, what happens after you sell it? Well, you're probably going to have to be asked to do and sign up for some SLAs, so someone's going to have to do that too. Finance, well, they're obviously going to have to approve any expansion in the first place, and they need to know what they're getting themselves into. Legal is going to be required because they're going to need to redline contracts, assuming you all have contracts that need to be agreed and regulated according to wherever you're selling and who you're selling to. And then lastly, product development is also going to need to be required, because if you don't take feedback from the field, either from partners or directly, then you're going to also ultimately find yourself behind the 8 ball, because at the end of the day, it's the partners and the people in market that know best, even if you think you know best from your home market. So just a few reality checks before we get into the fun stuff of channel. I'm particularly passionate about channel. I've built a career on channel. And the reason why I'm so passionate about channel is because I've generally worked for smaller companies, companies underneath 200 people in size. And in the absence of having large teams, not working for the big tech companies or big consulting companies, you really kind of have no choice. That actually, if you really want to build pipeline across region, you simply have to scale via the channel, assuming you want to scale. And by the way, that's not mandatory, because lifestyle businesses are cool too. But really, if you really want to grow this to the next level, channel is truly essential. And the reason for that is very simply, the world is simply too big. You can't cover the ground. You're never going to have the relationships, no matter how much travel you put in, to be able to work those accounts. Even if you go and have fantastic trips, partners. And when I talk about partners, I'm talking about the resellers, the distributors, the people that have been selling lots of solutions for target buyers for many, many years. You can't just recreate that relationship overnight. And as you know, certainly those in Asia, if you, this whole region is built on relationships, and that trust is everything, arguably far more important than any product. And so that partner trust piece is important, but beyond the trust and the language and the religious connotations and the cultural nuance that partners bring, they can get you to market quickly. They can get you anywhere. They can provide that in-market resource. And of course, they can help you communicate, assuming that you're going to markets which English isn't necessarily their local language. But partnering is, it's quite deep when you break it down. And these are just some questions that I'll challenge everyone to. I'm happy to take questions, obviously, after this. But do you have a partner program? A partner program is really important when you're going out to target partners, because you need to show that you know how to partner, both from a recruitment point of view, from a partner enablement point of view, and from how are you going to help them day to day support, assuming that they bring pipeline to you and you're going to support them. You need to be able to articulate that and share well before you've signed any partner agreement why that's important. Have you defined what your partners even look like? They could be consulting companies, they could be just pure play resellers, they could be distributors, they could be government agencies. There's lots of nuance. We've had customers with 9, 10, 11 different partner types, all of which have to have a slightly different story for their particular use cases as to how it pertains to companies that we're helping to partner. Companies often get headstrong on building case studies around how their product is relevant to the end user, which is fine. No one's saying that that's a bad thing. But if you're going to go out to market and really go and try to recruit partners at scale, it's also important to articulate how you've been successful with partners before, not in terms of how great your product is, which I'm sure it is, by the way, but also how you have helped other partners in the position of partners that you're trying to recruit, how it's helped them build their business. So the success stories on those is not so much about how great your product is, but how your product has helped partners succeed. And an example of that might be, well, we've helped a company or a reseller essentially grow their business by 20-25%. We don't even talk about the product. We just talk about that mutual benefit. I talked about partner contracts before, seems simple, but essential. So, and that takes legal review and whatnot. So you need to get that in place. And you also need to, based on the partner types that you define, offer them different degrees of discount or margin. And they're different, by the way, because sometimes partners will charge above and you'll give them a discount. And sometimes you'll give them a list price and then they'll discount beyond. Again, it's another decision point, which you just need to be financially aware of based on the unit economics of who's taking you to market. Is it on your paperwork or is it on theirs? That's ultimately the difference between those two terms of discount and margin. Next is, well, once you've got partners, well, what are you going to do to actually support them? Recruiting partners is quite easy because it's just easy PR. You can put it on LinkedIn, but it doesn't really matter until deals are made. At the end of the day, the nirvana is to get the salespeople of partners to take your solution in front of the accounts that they already know. And so understanding how to get from partner agreement and a LinkedIn post to actually getting the salespeople within that partner organization to actually talk about it are two different things. I know partners that have got 10,000 products in their portfolio, and most salespeople will have a headspace of probably 10, maximum of 20. So how do you get your solution to the top end of the headspace? So it's a challenging thing, but you've got to have that enablement piece in place. And then second of all, you also have to make sure that if you're going to help them build a pipeline, because they're not just going to go out and do that for you, how are you going to support them? And sometimes that needs funds, sometimes that needs people, but ultimately you do need to budget and allocate time so that you can not just expect them to go out and create opportunities, but also to support them in that exercise. And some of that might be just a case of mutual lead generation exercises, co-branded to help them get them started, or maybe co-investing in an event launch, for example. Then once you've got pipeline, well, how do you then track that? So you might have your own CRM system, but how do you hold them to account? And then also perhaps even give them visibility to that pipeline so that you can track it on a day-to-day basis. And next is, well, if you get deals or leads coming in from that target territory, are you prepared to provide that and offer that opportunity as a trust moment to say, look, you're our partner in any given region, and we're not just expecting you to provide pipeline to us, we're going to give you pipeline too. It's a really important act of trust, which is often overlooked because partners aren't just going to go and do that. They really need to believe that, and sometimes giving is the best act before receiving new pipeline. And then lastly, what do you do if you have channel conflict? You've got to really decide, do you have one partner per region, one partner per industry? Because if you have more than one in any region or any industry, depending on how you ring fence it, you've got to be ready for that, because the last thing you want is two partners competing, not least if you're also competing with them with your own direct sales team. So I'm all about partner first. If you're going to go into a new market, you either you pick your battles. And if you are going to partner, you make it very clear to them. I'm not suggesting exclusivity, by the way, but certainly if you're debating whether or not you should compete or just even have your own salespeople, or even from Singapore, go into deals without the involvement of the local partner, that's probably a bad move, because ultimately it's going to create stress, and you need to figure out how to handle that, or at minimum handle it in the legal agreements that you sign when you're going into that partnership in the first place. So when we talk about partner proposition, value proposition, it's quite nuanced. It's not just about margin. A lot of companies assume that, well, we're going to give you 10%, 20%, 30%, 50% on deals is enough. It's really not. In fact, most major partner players, the value-added resellers for the big tech companies, don't get me wrong, margin is important. They do need to see margin and a cut on deals that they're successful in, but they're not really into it. They're not really into the partnership because of that. And these are just a few suggestions as to how you can articulate your story beyond just a simple percentage margin, which is what, frankly, most companies do. It's not about that. It's generally about halfway down this list in terms of importance. It's about how do you add capability to what that partner's already doing in its current portfolio or service stack. So how do you speed up what they can do so that when they bundle your solution in, they can be more profitable, assuming they're a services business, for example. How do you help them compete better? Because your solution may well be just a piece of the puzzle to a much larger project than just things that you're bidding on. But it's the glue that helps them compete better. And sometimes it might be the differentiator. How do you then say, well, I'm going to make you our new partner. I'm going to give away all of our implementation services revenue. Going to a new partner and saying, we're going to do the services, you can't, is a bad move, because a lot of these partners want that services revenue. And so easy to implement solutions, or solutions which are so complicated that you can't offload that to them, is not necessarily a good message. It's really important to articulate that, because most partners are often in it for the services revenue. In fact, I'd put that quite high on this list of priorities. What does the managed services revenue look like? Assuming it's a managed service, what's the data migration? What's the integration revenue? What's the lifetime value of that customer? Do you have 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year contracts? And being able to articulate and explain to these partners what that ultimate revenue looks like for the long term is really important to them, mainly because they want to maintain wallet share, especially if they're selling into big business. And so you just have to be aware that when you are trying to recruit partners, these are your talking points. Lastly, your customer base, assuming that you have a customer base, could also be very attractive. It may be a customer base that your future partners have been trying to penetrate for some time, but cannot because of their existing portfolio. How can they access your own marketing initiatives and your own machine in order to drive more interest, not just in your solution, but in the aligned and associated services that the partner offers. If you have educational programs or certifications, that's also important, because guess what? The partners can also learn from the kind of tools that you've created, and ultimately learn from you and be better at what they do, or potentially even open up whole new industries. Also access to your sales tools, much alongside the educational programs. But then also, once you get big or scaled, sometimes, those certifications can also be very important and become, a real important piece of certification, so that they can actually even bid on these things in the first place. So then when we talk about partner marketing, we talked a lot about the value proposition, readiness, of course, and you've really got a story to tell, which is beyond just margin. But how do you articulate that? Well, on your website, you need a shop front. You need to make it clear that you've got a partner first focus. You need to show that you can talk competently about partners. You need to show that when a partner brings a deal to you, you're capable of supporting them out of hours or wherever that target territory is. And you need to be able to show that your vision for international growth is purely via partners, and that your entire function of your international growth is to support them. It curries favor. It gives them confidence that they're going to be successful, because you've really shown that you're partner-centric, which is why I make the point about being very careful about competing from a direct point of view. It's a common mistake that a lot of companies make, where they because they don't want to give margin away, they insist on going direct, but it doesn't know what any favors, because the partners are always going to have more scale than you will ever have. And you just need to give them the confidence that they're going to indeed, you're basically going to be good for that promise. those case studies are important. You need to have that customer facing and that partner facing collateral, two different things. But really, really importantly, going back to that last slide, it is absolutely essential with any kind of partner storyline that you have, that you articulate how you're going to grow their business by partnering with you. Forget the product. Partners have got lots of options of different products that they can take to market, especially in this whole AI revolution. So you really got to give them that confidence and ability to be able to see financially how they are going to grow as a result of partnering with you. And if you can do that, it's a huge differentiator, because frankly, most companies do this very, very badly. And so when it comes to that partner enablement, well, understand those incentives. How are the salespeople within those partners incentivized? And you can go to the nth degree of detail from an organizational sales chart of how a pre-sales person is compensated, how a salesperson is compensated, how a customer success person is compensated. And your duty as a vendor, this is, by the way, all those roles I was talking about is from the partner group, assuming these partners have got a sales team. I would hope that they do. Your duty is to understand deeply what that incentive matrix looks like, and to be able to explain to them role by role how you align to the different roles in any given organization structure. So it's a full-time job, because each partner's got different financial years. They've all got different sales organizations charts. The different organizations and the ways in which field teams are structured, they'll all have slightly different comp plans. And your job as the vendor to get into that top 10 out of a 10,000 product portfolio company is to make sure that you're top 10. And the way that happens is that money talks. And so if you align with that compensation plan, you'll do well. But it takes some interviewing, it takes some inquisition. But if you can really get to the bottom of how people are compensated, going into quota, how they can hit targets, and ultimately how they can feed their families, then that really is the nuance of partner enablement. If you can get to that point, you've hit nirvana. But then on the marketing side, it's not just about having a website which is partner friendly. It's also about that continuous comms, continuous funding around events and keeping them current. Essentially, partners should become an extension of your own sales team. And I would treat them in no real different way to your own headcount. And if you treat them that way, they will feel that. And that includes marketing, both in terms of sales tools, event support, funding that you might give them, or at least co-support them on. And then as part of that, you'd also want to create educational materials and just become a thought leader, not just on your own, but alongside the partners that you're working with. And then lastly, as I said, that product development feedback loop is really important, because when a company or a partner says, hey, we can't sell a deal because of any given feature that you're missing, well, it's best to probably listen to that. Get your product guys into that room, listen to why, understand why, see and understand how much of the pipeline is being stalled because of that. And if the pipeline justifies it, make the change. And that's all I've got today. So I appreciate I went a little bit over there, but that's all I had to share today, Jamie, given the time.
Oh, it's brilliant. And thank you for that. And apologies if there's any background noise. I think it should be okay. I can hear a little bit, but I thought that was a great session. And yeah, I think what you mentioned a few minutes ago, which is that a lot of businesses don't necessarily get this partner piece right, but it can be so valuable to getting faster growth, just getting your foot in the door in certain markets as well, and understanding things, especially a lot of the businesses we talk to, whether you're a business of one as a freelancer or you're a business with a small team, you don't necessarily have the resources to go out and hire a bunch of people. So to be able to kind of create that through partnerships is also super important as well. So thank you, Steve, for sharing that. I'm going to mute myself a second because I know that Yasis also had a couple of questions he wanted to ask you. And then in the meantime, I'll just encourage everybody on the call as well to put your questions either in the chat box or in the Q&A, and then we'll start going through those any moment now.
Jamie, thanks, Steve. An excellent presentation. Just first question to start off the conversation, Steve. We have lots of early stage founders in the forum here, as well as in the Doerscircle community. What would be some of the early signals for early stage companies to kind of think of market expansion? They've kind of proven themselves in a smaller market, and like what would be the indicators that they should now think of going across borders?
I mean, obviously, the first thing would be inbound interest. And if you've got inbound interest, you're probably onto something because someone has found you. But, you know, the beauty of AI, this is a thing that we're really deep into, both in terms of our discovery, but also in terms about how we go about pipeline creation as well as partner search, is AI makes it really affordable to build pipeline because it's automated, it's scale. You don't need a load of people. You don't need an SDR to go and do this. And with the right tools, you can bring it in-house. There are some great tools like Clay, which can essentially integrate lots of different tools into essentially a prompt engineered manager. That means that in order to get that early stage interest or indication, you or via a third party at an affordable cost can conceivably pick a place, test out your story at a fraction of the cost that it used to be able to cost you, and just see what the reaction is, really. You know, back in the day, that used to cost a lot of money to do that because you'd need people and you'd need to have a focused effort. But it's quite easy now to validate markets through some early stage interest, through scale via data. And if you've got that data, then it's pretty simple to go out and build that early stage interest and just pick an industry, pick a country, and just test it. Don't go all in because, you know, you can easily ruin it or go too early with that if you try to break into a market that you're not ready to service. That market readiness piece of what I just talked about is so important because, I mean, we speak to, as I said, 10, 20 companies a week. And they all want to be in Singapore or Asia, but, you know, they're not ready. And the reason why they're not ready is because what happens when you get a big pipeline of deals? Someone's got to support that. And depending on how complicated your contracting and pre-sales process is, that's you know, companies aren't ready, and that's a real dangerous thing because you can very easily go into a market, which is why you've got to go real slow. Get into all of the target accounts you'd ever wish for, but if you're not ready, you ruin it because it's really hard to go back a second time. So I guess my guidance on that would be go slow. You can easily find out whether or not there's interest, and using tools, you can do it at a very low cost.
I can ask one more question, Steve. There's a question from the audience as well, but maybe as a kind of a start to that conversation on partners, just on partner discovery. How would you recommend startups and founders discover new partners in different markets? If there's a focus market that they're looking at in Asia, how would that happen? Would that be through recommendations? Is it through ecosystem players? Just some guidance on finding right partners for startups.
The first, before any of that, you have to understand your value prop. Not. I'm sure everyone that's founded a company and has built whatever service or software solution is really clear on their unique value proposition for their product. But like I said, the partners, they do care. Of course, it's relevant, but they don't care much. They don't. They care about how you're going to help them grow their business. So it's just changing from what your value proposition is to the end user to what your value proposition is to the third party that's going to sell your product to the end user. Is a completely different thing. And so, of course, the product is important because it has to be decent. It has to pass muster. But, you know, it's frankly secondary. It really is. Because there's lots of other solutions that probably do something similar, right, at the end of the day. So that value proposition is front and center of everything. And if you can just figure out what those key points are, it could be 1 point, it could be 3 points, it could be 5 points, it could be 10 points. Your duty then is then to take it out to the market and obviously, you know, sell that. You're not selling the product. Partners don't care so much about your product, but they do care about how your product is relevant to the projects that they're running. And then once you've understood that, again, using AI, I would have had a very different answer to this 12 months ago, just for the record. Because then it used to be just, you know, figuring it out and just, word of mouth and events and a bit of a schlep, honestly. But you can find that out now. There's plenty of scraping tools that can help you identify who's aligned with what you do, what industries you play in, getting really personal on the contacts that you're targeting within the partner, what the KPIs are, or what any given annual theme is for what any particular partner wants. You can scrape that because it's all available in the public domain. You can pull that from LinkedIn. You can pull that from various other APIs, be it Apollo or ListKit or G2 or Built With. You can find out who they're already partnering with. And you can just essentially build a TAM, not just for end users and customers, because you might want to do that directly as well, which is fine. But you can also follow that same automated lead gen approach for partners, because it's public domain. This information is generally available on websites. And if you can find that out and you can align with companies in your space that already partner with some of these, well, you can do two things. One, you can at least see if you're in the same zone. And two, you can also usurp existing partners, because there's a half a chance that the partners that they're already partnering with are unhappy, for example. So I still go back to that data-driven approach. Using the tools that are available is pretty straightforward now these days to understand who you should be partnering with. But then once you've identified it and identified who you need to partner with, well, what's the story that you're telling? And that's where the value proposition comes in. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
It does. Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions from the audience. So we'll start with the first one, which kind of follows on a little bit from that as well. Let's say we've done that discovery element and we've started establishing relationships with certain partners. So the question says, like, although they may start with good intentions in the sense of, you know, you have that agreement on the value proposition and how each side of each partner can hopefully deliver value for each other on a mutual basis, sometimes they can turn one-sided. And so how would you try to avoid that? I feel like you started to answer the question, to be fair, in your slides, talking about how this is something that develops over time, education, marketing, and so on. And it's like that could be the short answer, but also just keen to get your thoughts on that question.
Sorry, so specifically, what's the question?
So when a partnership can start with a good intention, but then it becomes a bit more one-sided in the sense of maybe one partner is sending a lot of business one way, but then it's not necessarily reciprocated.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so a couple of ways to approach that. One, you just make your partnerships checkpointed, you know, so they're 1 year long or 2 years long. That's one thing, which is quite simple, because it's like, well, we're going to go into an agreement for so long. No, by the way, I would never advocate for exclusivity. If anyone asks you to exclusivity, avoid it. Unless the deal's too good to be true, just avoid it. It causes problems for that exact reason. When it goes south, you're stuck. So in the contract, it's pretty straightforward and common practice within your partner agreements to say this is valid for 12 months and just cover it off that way. So at minimum, you've got that coverage. The second piece of it is via targets. So you can, and maybe if a company does really well, you can offer them exclusivity, but exclusivity is based on targets that you set and they hit. So 2 levels of control, one in the contracts in terms of contract term. Second of all is in the Schedule A, which is generally the comp plan, which is, well, you've got this, and this targets to hit. And if you don't, there are, consequences. We can either finish it, or we do more. It goes both ways. And it just keeps everyone honest. But equally, if you are going to give them targets, you got to be fair to the partner. I hear so many companies come into this region and they say, oh no, all of our partners are bad, they're terrible. Well, they're not actually. Most partners are actually really quite good. They've built a business in their own right, doing whatever they do. But what most vendors make a mistake on is that they just assume that this partner is this lead generation engine. Remember, they're not being paid, right? They're not on a retainer. They're on a success fee anyway. They have to invest in this anyway. And so more often than not, it's not the partner's fault. They're solid in their own right, in whatever way they do it. The job of the vendor is to listen, ask questions, align, and make it relevant to them. And if you do all those things, then that's fine. But to answer the question, you just got to button it up in the contract, and they're probably the 2 ways I would do that.
No, that's a brilliant answer, and I think that's a measurable way that somebody could do that and avoid potentially it happening one-sided. But I mean, a lot of relationships follow that path, be it partners or even a client and a prospect kind of thing, that type of relationship too. Mindful there. So we've got a couple of questions that come in. A few anonymous attendees this time, so if you want to put your hand up in chat, that's also okay. But one was asking about, so you mentioned about scraping tools. Is there any that you would suggest to use? And then there's a question of is it like legal to do so? I mean, I know there's been a little bit in the media about that with LinkedIn and everything, but I think it depends on where you're potentially scraping from, really. But any thoughts on that?
It's legal. The scraping tool that's front and center, certainly of the lead gen service that we offer, is Clay, right? Okay. So Clay is, I mean, there are others, but Clay is magic, and you can take this in-house, right? So we're not, this isn't IP, it's not our product. But Clay is a fantastic tool which essentially integrates via API to lots of scraping tools, which are perfectly legal. How you then use that data based on GDPR and other ways in which you can, unsolicitedly reach out to people, that's on you, depending on where you want to take that to. But in terms of understanding who you need to target and how, Clay can do that for you, right? For sure. And it will essentially pull data in from any number of different scraping tools. There are literally hundreds of them for different use cases. Competitive information, buyer insights, just general, contact data, LinkedIn, Google Maps. It pulls it in, and it's absolutely compliant to do that. Second of all, once you pull that data in, you can then use that data within a tool like Clay to build it into some prompt engineered messaging sequences that can then make the messaging that you send out relevant, personalized, and on point to something that's relevant to them, i.e. making sure that you're not just doing this templated nonsense of, hey, do you want to meet me at 2:00 tomorrow because I've got a lead gen campaign, right? No one wants to see that anymore. We all get it, right? And it's unfortunately, it puts the whole industry to shame. So Clay would be a starting point. There are others, and I'm sure there's going to be more and more. But that piece of it is perfectly compliant. How you then use that data based on what you do with that data and where you're using it and which countries. They've got different jurisdictions, right? So different countries have got different rules. So I can't speak to that. You'd have to look into it. But if you want to understand your target market, be that end users or partners or any others, or even for even if you want to hire people, you could use it for that, right? You could use it for all sorts of use cases. That would be a good starting point. That is something that we do. Clay has got a concept of a claygency, not my word, theirs, whereby they,
Seen that, yeah.
you know, so where essentially you become a managed service to run it, because it does need a bit of a data-driven brain to run it. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you know how to use it, it really is magic.
Brilliant. Thank you. Hopefully that answers your question. There's another one here, which I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the question is, but just this, I'll read it out anyway. So it says, does Doerscircle assist with doing up agreements? I don't know if that's related to partner agreements, if that's the question. I mean, we have contract templates on the site in the resources that you can have a look at, and some of those are basically like legal frameworks that you can use as a skeleton to get started. And those have also been run through with our legal partner on that as well. So they are, you know, they're legally compliant in that sense to use. But if you have a particular request on that type of thing, types of agreements, maybe that's something also that, you know, if it's related to maybe a partner agreement, for example, then maybe that could be something that Stephen and us put our heads together on, for example, is something for the future. But yeah, let us know maybe if you want to add a bit more detail in the chat or in the question box if there's something specifically. Okay, we'll just have answered that one. There's another one. Any insight on how to grow professional services in Singapore and the region? Grow professional service. So I guess from a partner point of view, because you mentioned about professional services, right, in your bit in the slides.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If you are a vendor, it makes it easier to partner, right? As in you've got a product, you've got IP, which differentiates. Obviously, if you're a services company, it's generally people, which becomes more commodity, and it's harder to partner, no doubt about it, because a lot of the companies that you'd like to partner with would see you as competitive for sure. So my answer to that is that ideally you'd create some IP. You could be a 90% services business, but create a 10% part of your business, which is IP led, which is the glue in order to partner with. And also then just accept the fact that for rev shares, based on the glue that you've created, I guess just allow partners to deliver on that for maybe, you know, kind of a franchise model, train them up. Maybe you charge them to be trained on what you do. There's lots of ways to do that. But if you're just going in as a pure play consultancy without IP, and it doesn't have to be a software product, by the way. It could be certification, it could be a training course, it could be any number of things that make your service valuable. But the reason why another services company would partner with you is because of that, not because you've got more consultants, right? I mean, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but you can safely assume that most professional services companies are going to assume that they can figure that out. But if you've got stitching, which can be the anchor of both your go-to-market and others, great. And it could be a small thing, it could be a big thing. But yeah, there's no doubt services-based company partnerships are harder, and it's for that reason.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned obviously about having and knowing your value proposition as well. I think that's key, because then you can go as a service partner and say, this is where we're different. This is the value we add. Be it maybe a heightened level of service, or perhaps maybe you are more cost competitive versus others in the space, and that's why you can differentiate. So, you know, I mean, when we partner up with various service providers in the space, there are different players offering different services for different needs. You know, certain audiences who may be like a local in Singapore might just need a service that's kind of, I need it off the shelf, I know what I want. Whereas somebody else who's maybe entering a market from another region needs something which is more handheld and informed and kind of a white glove type service, or they need they need that local support because they're not physically here in that sense. So yeah, I think that's another thing when you're working out what you have to offer as a value proposition. How does that differentiate against competitors in that sense? And then that will get you some of the way there. Cool. Don't see any other questions in there just now, but I was curious because we have a little bit of time. Suzanne, I saw your message. You said you want to connect afterwards, and obviously you can. There's probably some bits you want to talk about privately. That's fine, but I'm curious to also get your thoughts. Given that you're also someone who's building your own business right now, and perhaps maybe this is an area you've thought about. I don't know if you've developed your own partner program yet, so I'm gonna unmute you, and then be good to get your thoughts just as someone who I know you've contributed in some of the other sessions as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, can.
Thank you, Steve. Very, very insightful presentation today. Thanks, Jamie and Yassis, for bringing Steve in. You spoke right to a lot of key points. As myself, as a startup that's trying to navigate through the Singapore and Southeast Asia region, the professional services question was from me, and it really makes a lot of sense to have your particular IP. But now I'm thinking, how do you share that IP out? Do you put those user stories, use cases on your website so that people really understand your expertise in specific use cases?
I think I don't know. It depends how secret sauce your solution is, really. I think you just got to make it. You got to make a call on that. Which services is obviously so broad. It can be anything to anyone. And I would caution personally on putting too much information on your website to give you a way in which you can address that. You can have a public face of your website, which is somewhat mysterious, right? Because you don't want to give it away. Ultimately, a website is a shop front, and you need to create enough intrigue so that there's a call to action where you can actually get in front of someone. That's number one. So you certainly don't want to give all the answers away, but you do want to establish credibility. So the case studies is important, but what it is can stay mysterious. There are other things that you could do to address it on your website should people ask that question around something specific that they have in mind, and you can handle that via website bots, which can essentially be chat agents, which will answer the question, but essentially have the answer to that question in hidden pages. So not necessarily something that you can browse, but hidden. If someone answers that question, you can answer it with the same content, but only if someone answers that question or asks that question, should I say. So you've got to decide ultimately how much you want to give away. But I don't think website should ever be the answer to all questions, but it does have to be a credibility source. But ultimately, if someone does ask something specific that ultimately is going to get you to the discovery call, which is what everyone wants, you have to keep some of that back, because otherwise it just, there's no reason to speak to you.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Good
much.
answer.
That is a secret tip I didn't know it existed. So thank you for sharing. But I think logos might help on the website.
Well, that's a given. That's a given. I mean,
Yeah.
the credibility is great, but
Yes.
yeah, how much you share is a different story, right? So credibility is vital, but you don't have to give chapter and verse on how you do it.
I'm also at the stage now of, when do you publish your website? I'm like, I could refine it till the cows come home.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where these bots come in, right? So I'll connect with you afterwards, but there's plenty of tools out there which will test out your story, have real conversations with people that come to your website, AI driven, that will essentially identify what your version of what you think the website should say and what people are actually asking, and essentially give you a gap analysis as to, well, you think it's this, which is, I'm sure it's fine, but people may well be asking something else. And yeah, these bots are, like I said, they're really affordable. So yeah, something for another day probably. But like as I said, all the tools are out there now, so you just got to be aware of where and how and deploy them. They're not expensive, and let the market dictate your website, not you, because I'm sure you've got great ideas, but at the end of the day, if your idea is not what people are asking about, you just got to make sure that your website represents that.
I'm also at the stage of I know what I want, but now I'm getting other offers of different things which isn't on my landscape, which possibly could generate revenue. And then it's which way do you go? Do you offer it as an additional service? But then do you dilute your focus?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think you just got to get started ultimately.
Yeah.
And so the website will never be ready, just for the record.
Got it.
Yeah, we should definitely do a session on those bots though. I think, again, I just think there's a lot of people that are unaware of the technology. I mean, I know about Clay because I see it a lot in sales spaces. Before, you've been using Clay for quite a while. But yeah, it's also these AI bots. I think there's a lot of tech out there which can carry a heavy load, especially for smaller businesses who really kind of don't have, they don't have a whole marketing department or a whole technology department and so on. So
yes, and so just just to share, one of the things that we do, which actually this isn't on Doerscircle, but it's a thing that we do just to share sort of what a journey can look like this day and age. We have a bot. These are third parties, by the way, just to be clear. This isn't our own IP, but we deploy a bot on companies' websites because there's no point doing lead gen. And then the first thing that you do when you create interest to any company in any format, it doesn't matter whether you're meeting someone at an event, it could be your friend, it could be your family, it could be at an event, it could be an outreach. The first thing they're going to do is go to your website. Make no mistake. That's what they're going to do. So the bot is a really important first step to identify the gaps in your website, because the conversations that are actually happening on your website will dictate what needs to be on your website, right? Based on why they're there in the first place. So it's a simple case of then seeing what people are asking and then filling in those gaps. What we'll then do is we'll use Clay to take in all of the personalized data that we need based on accounts, the company level, the contacts within those accounts, and the talking points that we need to have for each of the individuals in there. And we might have anywhere from 30, 50, 70 data points that we can talk to them about either their company or the individual. And then when their outreach goes out, generally via email, but it can go via LinkedIn or whatnot, it will have a link or an activation or a QR code, which will essentially allow them to have a voice conversation with a bot, multi-language, that can help clarify any questions that they might have before scheduling a meeting with you. And then it will schedule the meeting with you anyway, because it's got access to your diary. So it's quite scary, and it frankly removes the need for any inside sales. But maybe the inside salespeople can find something else to do. But that's literally what's happening, and it's available now. And in a year or two's time, this will be normal.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think when I talk to a lot of inside salespeople or sales executives or someone like that, then quite often they have an ambition to be further down the funnel in the conversation. So hopefully that kind of technology change will help unlock them to maybe fast track that as well, which is good. So yeah, brilliant. I think it'd be good to explore that a little bit more. And then I'm mindful that we've just hit the hour. So and with feedback from other people on a previous call, they were kind of sort of saying, okay, well, we're to tie it back to kind of the connection of Doerscircle as well. So just before I finish, I'm going to share my screen in case you're unaware that Asian Market Entry has a solution, and I think it's fair to say that there's an element of this which is quite exclusive as well the platform. I know that the services and the insights and things like that are very much Steve's been working with some of those government organizations that we mentioned, but this is something that we put together collectively to try and support businesses of different sizes as well. So there's a few different options here on how you can get going with finding, working out a little bit more about where are you doing well at the moment? Where could you be improving on? How can you start to develop some of those partnership programs or expand on it, like Steve just touched on just now as well. So if you're interested in that, then of course you go to doerscircle.com/Asia market entry. I'll put the link in the chat in a moment. But we'd love to, if anybody's interested on the call, they're very welcome to follow up, and we can have a separate conversation too. Cool. Okay. Anything else for any more? Yes, any more from your side?
Good. Thank you, James. Thank you, Steve, for your presentation and the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. Appreciate it. And
just ping me on LinkedIn. Our website's asiamarketentry.com, and look forward to chatting.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.